Ne kadar var?
چه خاطر تقامیتونه حالا ده
كثير الحمد لله. كانت الأمور أسهل مما كنا نتصور، رغم أنه هذا المكان كان له أهمية.
Britain's foreign minister saying there is, quote, a significant possibility the Russian plane that went down in the Sinai Peninsula was blown up by a bomb. The statement coming as British Prime Minister David Cameron is calling an emergency meeting of his top security chiefs. Former United States Ambassador, UN Ambassador John Bolton goes on the record. Good evening, sir. And, maybe this is a wake-up call to Putin about ISIS. I mean, this is an attack. All their citizens, much like our citizens got attacked, they lost 244, we lost 3,000. But maybe now he will see ISIS as the threat it is.
Well, I don't think he's ever doubted that ISIS is a threat, particularly deep inside Russia itself. I think his objective in Syria was to bolster the Assad regime. But if it turns out that ISIS is responsible for downing this plane, that is the single biggest mistake they have ever made, because Putin now will retaliate. And he won't mess around like President Obama has done. It will be, I think, extraordinarily massive. And I think he needs to do that for a number of reasons, including his domestic political calculus.
Well, I made the 9/11 reference. Obviously, our 9/11 is profoundly different, but just the fact that, you're under attack. And that you finally...
These were innocent civilians.
Totally innocent civilians, like ours, totally innocent civilians. And you read the newspapers there, and they're saying in Moscow that citizens who have been not united together are now united together, at least for the moment.
Yeah. Look, Putin in Ukraine and in his involvement in Syria has benefited from relatively few casualties, and that has allowed him to sustain the nationalism that's given him political support. This directly undercuts that. He has no choice but a very substantial military retaliation.
Does he now join with us and say he's been at odds with us, but does he at least have a greater commitment now?
I don't think that necessarily follows. I think he needs to demonstrate forcefulness against ISIS, which he will do, but his fundamental objective there remains the alliance with Iran, with the Baghdad government controlled by Iran, Assad, and Hezbollah. It may be they decide to go further. I don't think they're ready for it yet. I think this is now not an alliance issue. This is a Russian issue.
All right, so what is Putin going to do now?
I think he will probably beef up his air assets in the new Latakia air base, and when they're ready, I think there will be punishing retribution. I think that's his instinct, and I think that's what the next step will be.
And he'll actually put more boots on the ground in Syria.
I think it'll be an air attack in the first place.
But you think, but that's been not very effective. We've been trying that one.
I don't think we've been trying it very hard. I think, in fact, it will be an embarrassing contrast if Russia does what it's capable of doing. They've already demonstrated in their opening salvos in Syria. They fired cruise missiles from the Caspian Sea. They can do it. They can now fire it from the eastern Mediterranean. That's a massive step up politically for the Russians. And I think they'll work with the government of Egypt, which has been deeply hurt by this attack on what's left of their tourist industry.
I think President Obama and President Putin are talking about this?
They should be.
Do you think they are?
That's a good question. I think Putin's going to act on his own. I don't think he's going to ask anybody's permission, that's for sure.
The Syrian army continued to advance in eastern Ghouta in the Damascus countryside on Tuesday. According to reports, the Syrian troops took full control over Al-Mahaleh area to the south of Majd al-Sulat and the farms surrounding it. Earlier, field sources said the army made advances in the Majd al-Sultan military airport area, destroying several militants' vehicles and killing at least 22 al-Nusra terrorists. The Syrian army and Hezbollah forces launched massive operations in the Aleppo province on Tuesday. Reports say that the pro-government forces seized back full control over Mayuda in south of Aleppo countryside. Meanwhile, the joint operation allowed the Syrian forces to recapture the Makhala village after fierce clashes against the terrorists. 24 civilians were killed and 50 others were injured in terrorist rocket attacks in Latakia city on Tuesday. The casualties were caused by 2 rocket shells that landed in residential areas. Yesterday, the Syrian Arab Army, SAA, and its allies re-established a ground line of communication to the hitherto besieged Kuwairis airbase east of Aleppo city. An advance party of the SAA established contact with about 300 Syrian army soldiers besieged by ISIS in the base. Clashes are reportedly ongoing as newly arrived Syrian reinforcements attempt to expand the base's defensive perimeter. The advance marks the culmination of one component of a multi-pronged offensive which began on October the 15th. The success of the operation relied heavily upon Russian air support. The location of the Kuwairis airbase provides a potential staging ground for regime forces to conduct further operations that challenge ISIS's presence in the eastern part of the Aleppo province, to contest ISIS-held terrain on the eastern outskirts of Aleppo city, as well as critical ISIS supply lines connecting Araka city to the Turkish border. This success will definitely provide a powerful morale boost to the military forces loyal to the Syrian government. The opposition constitutes a much-needed symbolic victory for the Syrian regime following major territorial losses in the first half of 2015. In turn, the US experts point out that this event does little to change the strategic outlook at the Syrian battleground. The base remains vulnerable to an ISIS counterattack if the pro-government forces can't seize additional terrain to provide their salient with defense in depth. Iraqi military reinforcements gathered in the town of Qaldiya on Tuesday for an anticipated assault against Ramadi. The unconfirmed reports argue that Iraqi military units were able to encircle Ramadi after multiple bloody battles with the ISIS militants in surrounding towns. Meanwhile, 65 ISIS members were slain in a military operation supported by army jets in Al Buhayat area in Haditha district 160 kilometers west of Ramadi.